Today we get a super early special sneak peek at the upcoming standard set Murders at Karlov Manor, which is basically like Wizards took that one episode of The Office where they did the murder mystery.
Shall we get to the mystery?
I'll go. My name is Deborah Utant, Deb for short.
That's clever. And mashed it together with Ravnica, and even the board game Clue was involved somehow. Let's break it down. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for our first edition, a very early sneak peek edition of Murders at Karlov Manor spoilers. So, Murders at Karlov Manor, it's the next Magic set, not coming out until the middle of February. Spoiler season proper doesn't kick off until after the holidays in the middle of January, but we got a super early look at the set today during the WotC stream, and we got a bunch of cards to talk about. We got some really iconic returning characters, one of the most exciting uncommon reprints that we've gotten in a long time, some new legends, some very interesting stuff, which means we should probably jump right into it, start talking sweet new Magic cards. Before we do, two quick reminders. First, to keep up on all the latest spoilers throughout preview season, you should head on over to MTGPreviews.com. Second, if you need any of these cards, you can snag them from our sponsor Card Kingdom over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. Anyway, let's talk Murders at Karlov Manor. We have the return of Aurelia in Aurelia the Law Above. And also, shout out to that showcase treatment in the middle. The one on the right is fine, but that middle one is super cool. One thing we've talked about before is when I open a showcase treatment in a booster pack, I don't just want the border erased with the same art. I want it to pop. I want to know right away I opened something special. And I think that this dossier treatment really nails it. But Aurelia itself, 5 mana 4/4 Legendary Angel, Flying Vigilance Haste, says when a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card, and when a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, it deals 3 damage to each of your opponents and you gain 3 life. So Aurelia seems like a really strong card to me. If you look at past Aurelias, they all mostly care about going wide, having a bunch of creatures on the battlefield. Aurelia the War Leader, the original, gives you extra combat steps, so the more creatures you have, the more value you get. Aurelia Exemplar Justice actively cares about other creatures to pump. Aurelia the Law Above is kind of similar. It's a good creature on its own. 5 mana 4/4 flyer. With Haste and Vigilance, that's already a solid creature in a format like Standard, and then you get a lot of upside if you can build a board. I imagine this Aurelia being the top end of your aggro curve, where you're playing 1-drop into 2-drop into 3-drop, and then you stick Aurelia, and then you swing. If you curve out 1 to 5, and this is your top end, and all your stuff lives, you'll actually trigger all of Aurelia's modes. When you attack, you'll get to draw an extra card, and deal 3 damage to your opponent, and gain 3 life, which is really ridiculous. The card draw mode is also intriguing. Like, yeah, the dream is you attack with 5 creatures and you get all the modes on Aurelia, but even just attacking with 3 creatures, and remember, Aurelia is a creature with haste, so you only need 2 other creatures on the battlefield. You swing in, you get a 4/4 hasty vigilant flyer, and you get to draw a card. Reminds me a little bit of Zurgo and Ojutai, which hasn't really taken off in Standard. It's seen some fringe play, but it's also in 3 colors and not like super popular colors, so I think Aurelia to me looks like a really solid Standard card. As far as where you play it, could be an angel card. We still got Yadi in Standard. We got a bunch of other angels. I don't know if angels really embrace the full, like, curve out, play a bunch of creatures, have this be your top end mode of Aurelia, but I think Aurelia would be a fine creature there, especially since angels mostly have flying. So this could come down, give some card advantage, sneak in some damage to close out the game. Could also be really interesting is the top end of some sort of Boros aggro deck. We've seen some, like, Regal Bunnycorn, Sanguine Evangelist, Resolute Reinforcement decks in Standard. Aurelia at 5 mana, maybe it's just like too expensive for these decks, but that's a kind of deck that it would fit in. Like, you're gonna have all these creatures on the battlefield. Aurelia comes down, smacks for 4, hits for 3 with its ability, draws your card, probably closes out the game on the spot. The other interesting part about Aurelia in Commander is its ability is worded in a way where it triggers when anyone attacks. So if your opponent attacks you with 3 or more creatures, you're gonna get to draw a card. If they attack you with 5 or more creatures, they're gonna take 3, you gain some life. In Standard, this is like kind of relevant. Like if you're in some weird aggro race where like you swing at your opponent, then they swing back at you, you're going to get some extra value out of it. But I think this is really going to come into play in Commander, where you have 4 players, so you can play Aurelia, hopefully haste in, trigger it, draw a card, get in some damage, and then as your opponents are attacking each other, your Aurelia just sits out there and generates value, like in the absolute dream scenario. And this isn't going to happen very often, but you could play Aurelia in the first time around the table, draw 4 extra cards, deal 12 extra damage, gain 12 extra life. So it does scale in an interesting way for multiplayer Commander. So Aurelia, I think, is maybe the strongest rare out of all the cards we'll talk about today. I think it's actually like a pretty legit Standard card. Good stats, good abilities, fits in multiple places in Standard, and has some Commander potential. We also got the return of Rakdos in Rakdos, Patron of Chaos. So new Rakdos, 6 mana 6/6, legendary demon. It has flying and trample, and it says at the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sack 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. So Rakdos, it might be the boringest Rakdos we've seen so far. It's not really much of like a build around, like here, do all this crazy stuff. It's just like the biggest Muldrifter ever for the most part. Yeah, I guess your opponent could sack 2 things, but if they sack 2 things, then you get the reverse Muldrifter where your opponent's down 2 cards, so that's still perfectly fine. So this is just like a really big, really well-statted flyer that's going to generate card advantage every single turn that it sticks out on the battlefield. I really, really like that it has that non-token permanent clause. If this didn't say non-token, I would immediately disregard it as a Standard card. I don't think there'd be any chance because there's so many random maps and creature tokens and bloods, and as we get through more of this new Ravnica set, you're going to see like a million cards that investigate and make clue tokens. If your opponent could just sack a couple of random map tokens and not have to do anything, this card would be utterly unplayable. But since it has that non-token clause, I think this could see Standard play. Like, it is a bit expensive, so we'll have to wait and see. But every turn this sits out, it generates a ton of value. We've seen some decks in Standard that are just like mid-range good stuff decks, like Jun mid-range. And those decks are just like, you know what, I'm going to play the best removal possible. I'm going to play my Shieldred. I'm going to play my Bonehood Rakosaur. I'm going to trust that you can't kill all my good things. And if I stick one of my things, it's probably going to take over the game. I think that Rakdos fits pretty nicely at the top end of that curve, essentially. It's another really powerful big creature that if it stays on the battlefield is going to quickly overwhelm your opponent with card advantage or just by making your opponent sacrifice all their stuff. So I don't think this is like a 4-of by any means in Standard, but I could see this being like a nice 1-of at the top end of your curve. I like that it triggers on your end step, so it doesn't need to survive a turn around the table to do anything like Bonehood Rakosaur. All it's got to do is dodge instant speed removal for the very turn you play it, and you at least got 2 cards out of it, either by drawing cards or making your opponent sacrifice them. So Rakdos, I don't think it's a Standard staple or anything. It's very simplistic and clean, but it does have a lot of power. The other place that I'm sure this card will see play is in Demon decks in Commander. So honestly, I don't think it's the most exciting Commander. If I'm going to build demons in Commander, I'm probably playing Belkor or maybe like one of the old Rakdoses. Even Raphael's kind of intriguing. There's some Commanders that really push you into being like a demon deck. Rakdos is just like this big good stuffy value-y card, so I'm not that excited to make it my Commander, and I don't think it'll be that popular as a Commander. I think most people will go another direction as the leader of their demon deck in Commander, but I think Rakdos in the 99 is absurd. It's just like this huge Muldrifter, and in Commander you get to choose which opponent to target with its ability, so you can try to like target the opponent that doesn't have many permanents to make sure you draw the cards if you want to, or target the opponent that has a really good permanent to try to get rid of them. So there is some flexibility there. So not the most exciting like leader of a Commander deck, but really, really solid in the 99. So Rakdos, Patron of Chaos, really simple Rakdos, but a really powerful Rakdos nonetheless. We also got a new non-legendary creature, imagine that in 2023, in Wojek Investigator. So Wojek Investigator, 3 mana 2/4. It's an angel detective, new creature type coming into Magic. Detectives are now a thing. It is flying and vigilance, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. So when I first read this card, I was pretty mad on it. I was like, all right, like, I think this is a commander card, even though it's not legendary. It seems like it's one of those cards that, like, scales better in commander. Sometimes this is going to do nothing and just be like a 2/4 flying vigilance, which isn't bad, which isn't exciting. But the more I thought about it, the more I came around to, okay, I think this could play a role in standard and also obviously in commander. So if you think about it, it starts off at Righteous Valkyrie stats. In Righteous Valkyrie, a 2/4 flyer for 3 mana, that's actually a really nice body. Really good at blocking aggro creatures, all the Blood Tithe Harvesters and Graveyard Trespassers and Denix of the world, which are really popular in standard, just kind of get stonewalled by this thing. And then you can chip in for some damage since it has vigilance, so you're allowed to attack with it and still have it back on defense. And then maybe sometimes it's going to draw you a card. The main reason I was skeptical when I first read it is if your opponent doesn't have more cards in hand than you, then this is just a vanilla creature, which isn't worth it. Like, if you're not ever triggering the ability, I don't think it's going to be good enough to see play. The good news is you can build your deck in a way to make this happen. I think this is another card that really wants to be the top end of your aggro curve. If you're playing White Weenie and your goal is to be like all 1-drops, all 2-drops, a few 3-drops, and just like dump your hand really quick, odds are you're going to be able to dump your hand faster than your opponent dumps their hand, and that's going to allow Wojek Investigator to start triggering every single turn and generating a ton of card advantage. So I think that's a role for this. If you're like a mid-range deck or a control deck that's holding a bunch of cards in hand, this loses a lot of its value. I don't think it's going to be worth it at all. But if you're in an aggro deck and this can be kind of the top end of your curve, then this is actually kind of exciting. Also, another new card in this pile of 1-drops, and Novice Inspector, just a 1-mana 1/2 ETBs, investigates, makes a clue token. It's literally Thraben Inspector, one of my all-time favorite creatures, reskinned, functional reprint, not the same name on it, but is the same exact card. In Thraben Inspector, this random little 1-drop common has shown up all the way back to Modern. It's a really, really powerful effect. 1-drops that generate card advantage are so good in Magic. So I actually think that Novice Inspector is going to be one of the most impactful cards of the day. We can't really go on too much about it because it's a functional reprint. It's just a common, but really that card's really, really good. So don't sleep on Novice Inspector. In standard, maybe with Wojek Investigator, but in general, it's just a really powerful effect. Could also maybe see Wojek Investigator in Angels, kind of like Aurelia though. We talked about with Aurelia, it really wants to be the top end of your aggro curve. Angels just don't do that as well. I'm not sure Angels can dump their hand quickly enough to turn on Wojek Investigator, but it does have the right creature type, so that's probably worth keeping in mind. Also, in Commander, I think it gets even better. So this is another card that it's not worded specifically for Commander, but because it cares about the number of opponents you have who have more cards in hand than you, it can be really strong in Commander. So in Commander, you got 3 opponents. That means, in theory, if they all have more cards than you, because you're some sort of aggro deck who dumped your hand, you could be getting 3 clues for free each turn. So again, if you're playing an Angel deck in Commander, Sigarda, Lyra, something like that, this isn't a busted card or anything, but it's probably good to at very least consider in the 99. And if you're an Angel deck that somehow also has clue synergies, then Wojek Investigator becomes actively good. We also got an Azorius Mythic, an Alquist Proft Master Sleuth. So this is a 3-mana 3/3 legendary human detective. It has vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, you investigate, so you make a clue token, and then you can pay X, white, blue, blue, tap, sacrifice a clue, and draw X cards and gain X life. If that sounds familiar, Alquist is essentially a Briarbridge tracker, is a 3-drop that makes a clue that gives you the ability to tap, pay a bunch of mana, sack a clue, and Sphinx's Revelation. It's a Sphinx's Revelation, repeatable every single turn as long as you have a clue to sacrifice and Alquist on the battlefield. In Sphinx's Revelation is a ridiculous Magic card. And notice there's no like restriction on here. This isn't like only as a sorcery or anything like that. So as long as you untap with this and have a clue, you can just like leave your mana up, leave your Alquist up. It even has vigilance, so you can attack and still use its ability. And then when you get the right window, just draw a bunch of cards, gain a bunch of life. We saw Sphinx's Revelation during its time in Standard, and this was 2 Ravnicas ago now. So we're talking, you know, almost a decade at this point. But this was one of the most dominant, best cards during its era in Standard. Obviously, being attached to a creature is a risk. Like, it's got to survive a turn, and it has summoning sickness, creature removal can stop it. So it's not as good, I don't think, as Sphinx's Revelation, but it's still a really powerful effect. I also love the flavor of this card. If you think about it, it's the detective, it's a sleuth, and then he cracks a clue and he has a revelation. Like, it's kind of just like perfect flavor-wise when you consider its ability being Sphinx's Revelation. So I actually really like this card. We've seen Briarbridge Tracker see some play in Standard. So even if you ignore this Sphinx's Revelation mode as being this pie-in-the-sky thing that's not going to happen that often, a 3-mana 3/3 that makes a clue when it ETBs that has Vigilance, that's already like an okay card. And then you get this huge upside that sometimes you're gonna like draw 5 cards and gain 5 life off of this, and it's gonna be like absolutely ridiculous when you activate that last ability. The main question for this card I have in Standard is like, maybe this is a once Pelukrinos rotate style card. Like, it's good, but is it good enough in a really big Standard format to beat out some of the leftover cards that when Wizards was designing Alquist probably expected to have already rotated? So like Rafine, for example, is just such a strong 3-drop that's kind of competing very directly in the same decks that might want Alquist. Wedding Announcement, another like 3-drop that generates card advantage, puts bodies on the battlefield. These are cards that Wizards probably thought would have rotated by now when they were designing this Standard format. So I'm not sure Alquist, even though I like it, I'm not sure if it like beats out these other cards that have already proven themselves to be the strongest in Standard and been there for 2 years now. So I don't know if it beats out these cards. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it's like a one of in the mix of some of the legend decks with Rafine. We'll have to see exactly how it shakes out, but I do think at some point, I mean, it's going to be in Standard for what, almost 3 years thanks to the new rotation schedule. I think there will be a point when this card is good enough to see play in Standard. Maybe it's got to wait till September once we finally get Rafine and Wedding Announcement and some of these cards out of the format, but it is good enough to see play. Obviously, it goes way up in value if you have other ways of taking advantage of the clues. And one thing I noticed, just looking through the handful of cards that WotC spoiled from this set, so many of the cards just say investigate on them. So many things like just ETB, make a clue, do this, make a clue. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some payoffs for cracking clues, making clues in this set. If there's payoffs for making clues, then Alquist goes up in value even more. So maybe we don't get like Literal Honest or Peregrine Choke, but look for these kind of synergies, because there might be reasons where just like making a clue is actually way better than just making a clue. As far as Commander is concerned, I'm not sure what to make of this card. Like, it's a fine value-y card, it generates card advantage, doesn't strongly push you in any direction. We're kind of looking at the top tier of Azorius commanders here, the most popular. I don't think Alquist is going to be in the Shikore, Brago, Melisyn tier, but I do think it has some upside. I think if you want to build around this, it's kind of interesting as an Azorius clue commander. If there's any direction that this pushes you, it's be a clue deck. And there are some like kind of cool payoffs for being an Azorius clue commander. Like Thorough Investigation might be my favorite. I mean, like Academy Manufacturer is always ridiculous and anything that can make clues, food, or treasures, but Thorough Investigation, whenever you attack, you make a clue, and when you sack a clue, you venture into a dungeon. If you're a deck that's built around making clues, because your commander's making clues in Alquist and you have all other clue synergies, this could actually be like kind of a hidden commander, a real build around where you're just like turboing through dungeons. There's also older cards like Fleeting Memories. When you sack a clue, you mill someone for 3 cards. So there are some reasons to be a clue deck in Azorius, so maybe that's the direction to go with Alquist. So Alquist, I think this card's pretty cool. I like this card quite a bit. We'll have to see if it immediately makes an impact on Standard. I'm kind of guessing it's like a 1 of, a 2 of type card immediately. But once we get rid of the Wedding Announcements, the Rafines, these other really push cards that have been hanging around for a while, I could see Alquist being really good in Standard. And if you ever get to pull off the Sphinx's Revelation mode, you're probably just going to win the game. We also got some really exciting lower rarity cards, with the biggest being a reprint in, oh my god, it is literally Lightning Helix in Standard. Lightning Helix, if you're a newer Magic player, you might not even know this card. It's a 2-mana Boros, instant, 3 damage to any target, you gain 3 life. This is one of the most iconic burn spells in Magic's history, and this is a card that hasn't been in Standard since original Ravnica. We're talking 2005. It's almost been 20 years since Wizards let Lightning Helix into Standard. Lightning Helix just does everything you want in a burn spell. If you think about Standard, The going rate for a burn spell is Lightning Strike, which is 2 mana for 3 damage. This is the same thing. You add in an extra color, and you get 3 life out of it, which is a ridiculous deal. So I honestly am surprised that Wizards brought this card back. I thought that Wizards considered to just be too strong for Standard. We've got a lot of like almost Lightning Helixes, like Lightning Helix, but it's 4 mana or 3 mana, or it's like some weird fuse card. There's been cards like that, but we haven't gotten anything close to real Lightning Helix. But now it's not only coming back to Standard, it's also going to be in Pioneer for the first time. So part of the power of Lightning Helix is this is a card that you can play in literally any style of deck. In aggro decks, burn style decks, it's a very efficient burn spell. Like, this is the going rate for a burn spell, plus you get life gain out of it. So if you're playing a burn style deck, an aggro spellslinger style deck, you're going to play Lightning Helix. But the other power of Lightning Helix is you'd also play it in a control deck, because in a control deck, this can kill one of your opponent's creatures. The 3 life is relevant to help you stabilize where you're setting up for your sweepers and so forth. And that's the power of Lightning Helix. Over this card's history, look at like Modern. There was a time when this was a staple in Jeskai control in Modern, and at the same time, a staple in Boros Burn in Modern. 2 decks on the very opposite end of the spectrum. And that's the power of having damage and life gain packed together in a really efficient package. As I mentioned before, first time in Pioneer as well, and I think Lightning Helix will be really good in Pioneer. This is a lot of the most popular creatures in the format. Lightning Helix actually deals with most of them. It's often trading up, killing 3-drops, killing a Redain or a Bone Crusher Giant Graveyard Trespasser, and just like we talked about in Standard, this can be a burn card. This is immediately going to become the best burn spell in the format. We already have Boros burn decks. They're not like super strong, but they're built around Lightning Strike. Literal Lightning Strike. This is such an amazing upgrade for a burn deck, especially in a format like Pioneer that can be aggro, 2 ships passing in the night, where that 3 life can swing the race in your favor. Plus, you can be playing in a mid-range and control to deal with the creatures that your opponent's playing. So Lightning Helix, I think, is a hugely impactful spell. It will see Standard play. It will see Pioneer play. It even still sees Modern play. Like, I'm just blown away that Wizards actually put this iconic card back in Standard. It is really, really powerful. We also got some other lower rarity stuff that's intriguing. Demand Answers, 2 mana instant. It's an additional cost to cast it. Sack an artifact or discard a card, and then you draw 2 cards. So this is essentially an upgrading Tormented Voice. The sack artifact mode is pretty big in Standard. We got a lot of random tokens, maps and clues and bloods. Plus we got decks like Oni called Anvil that cares about sacking artifacts. So I think that little improvement of being able to sack an artifact rather than discarding a card actually is a really big improvement that could make this pretty Standard playable. We haven't seen Tormenting Voice really see Standard play recently, but this might be enough of an upgrade to get the job done. We also got a card that's mostly notable because I'm pretty sure it means we're getting a Scooby-Doo Secret Lair drop in Meddling Youths. So Meddling Youths, it's literally Scooby-Doo, the magic card. 5 mana 4/4, blah, 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 doesn't really matter. But look at the card, they're pulling the mask off. It's literally a Scooby-Doo meme. So I'm like 90% sure. I would put my money on right now that in a few months, we'll be getting some sort of like Universes Beyond Scooby-Doo Secret Lair drop, with Meddling Youths being reskinned as like Scooby-Doo and all that stuff. Maybe we get like Smuggler's Copters, the Magical Mystery Bus. I don't know. If you got other ideas of what would fit as reskins in a Scooby-Doo Secret Lair, definitely let me know. Meddling Youths, it's not going to see any play. Not strong enough, I don't think, to see play. But the flavor is kind of funny because it's just like straight up ripped off Scooby-Doo. We also got Gleaming Geardrake, which is a card that every time I read it, it kind of grows on me a little bit. So it's a, is it 2 mana 1/1 artifact creature with flying. When it enters a battlefield, you investigate. And we already talked about, with the Thraben Inspector thing, how cheap investigating creatures tend to really punch up. This one's 2 mana instead of 1, but still, it's a cheap creature that makes a clue, which is already good. And then, when you sack an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And again, no restriction, no once per turn or any of those shenanigans. So if you make a bunch of treasures and play this and sack a bunch of treasures, this is going to be like 5 power, 10 power. It's going to get really massive really, really quick. So when I first started thinking about this, outside of like treasure decks and Commander or whatever, where it's going to be really good, if you're sacking artifacts repeatedly, it's going to be good. It reminded me a lot of Sir Ginger. Sir Ginger has a very similar ability where when an artifact goes into the graveyard, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it and scry 1. I wonder if there could be some sort of deck that takes advantage of both of these. Put these together, make the clues or maps or bloods, however you're going to do it, only called Anvil to sacrifice artifacts, and grow these into just massive game-ending threats. Plus, remember, we've talked about this again and again, but there's so many artifact tokens in Standard with bloods and treasures and maps and now clues that it seems like it's going to be pretty easy to just like make a bunch of artifact tokens, sack a bunch of artifact tokens, make this into a really big threat. So even though this is a random uncommon, I think this might have some constructed potential. I think this is one of my sleeper picks from the set so far. Gleaming Geardrake can get really big really fast. We also got just a ton of other lower rarity stuff. If you want to check it out, head over to mtgpreviews.com. Some of it's kind of like flavorful. You get some more art out of it. Not much that I think is going to like break Standard or anything like that, but some cool cards nonetheless. We also got the basic lands for Murders at Karlov Manor, but they look pretty sweet. I think the forest is my personal favorite, but they all look really good. Finally, we didn't just get Murders at Karlov Manor spoilers, we also got some Ravnica clue spoilers. So this is a separate product. It's not Standard legal. It's a very unique product. So here's my understanding of Ravnica Clue. So Ravnica Clue is a standalone product that's kind of like Jumpstart and kind of like the Clue board game. It's Universes Beyond in that it's Clue characters like Senator Peacock is an actual character from the game Clue, and the weapons and rooms are all from the game Clue. So it's technically Universes Beyond, although not completely. They mentioned during their stream that like Lead Pipe is actually going to be in the Standard set as well, even though it's a Clue card, so it's a little convoluted, but it's a standalone product. The idea is you can use 3 or 4 players, you open the packs, you crack them open, you put them together and play like Jumpstart, but there's also a Clue aspect where there's going to be questions that you try to answer to figure out who the murderer is, and if you can figure out who the murderer is, that's another pathway to winning the game. So you don't just win by getting your opponent to 0 life, you can also win by figuring out who the murderer is, like a game of Clue. The other notable thing about this product, you see the Steam events over here. So right now, I see this selling on Amazon for around $70, and you get 8 booster packs, plus it's got this game aspect to it, a little bit of a board game aspect, but you're guaranteed a shock land in every one of the boxes that you pick up of these. So the shock lands, Wizards clarified, not coming to Standard. They're not going to be in Karlov Manor proper, but they are in this non-standard legal Clue set. So I guess that's going to be cool to get some more shock lands. It's never bad to see expensive land cycles reprinted. And like get one in every box is kind of a neat gimmick. $70 though, we'll have to see what the rest of the set looks like. I'm really not sure if this Clue Ravnica thing is going to be worth buying or not. But we'll have to wait and see. Keep an eye on the prices. Maybe this will get shock lands down a little bit more. As far as the cards themselves, Lead Pipe, random equipment that's also a Clue. Haha, sneaky Watsy. Steam vets, you know that one. Dining Room. So this is a lower rarity land cycle that shows off the rooms in the Clue game. The ETB tap, make 2 colors, and you can pay 4 tap to investigate. At first I thought they were rare and I was disappointed, but for being uncommons, they're actually like kind of fine. It's nice to get a little extra value out of your lands. And the one actual creature we saw, Senator Peacock, 5 mana, 3/4. It's a human advisor. It says artifacts you control are clues in addition to their other types. So they have pay 2, sack them, draw a card, and whenever you sack a clue, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So I don't know what to expect from this product. We've seen Jumpstart be not as powerful in general as like a Standard set, but then have some like really busted Muxus, Allosaurus Shepherd style cards that are just like legacy staples. I don't know what to expect. So let me know what you think about this odd, unique, sort of Universes Beyond-y, partly Jumpstart, partly Clue board game product that's coming a little bit after Karlov Manor proper. But anyway, that is our sneak peek at Murders at Karlov Manor. That's our daily spoilers for today. So let me know what you think. We don't jump back into spoiler season until after the holidays in January. This set doesn't come out until February, so we still got a minute to go. We're super early with these, like more than 2 months before the release. But let me know what you think. What is your favorite card of the day? What's your hype level for this set? What do you think of the flavor? What do you think of that showcase style? That dossier style looks so good. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back, I guess, after the holidays, most likely, unless we get some more surprise spoilers with even more daily spoilers. So until then, have an amazing day, everyone, and I will talk to you soon. Looking for even more magic? Well, check out the video where we talked about the most hated card from every year of Magic the Gathering, or maybe the Against the Odds, where we tried to win by getting 1,000 counters on Millennium Calendar.